going over her project for the project gallery. She is really great with pottery and ceramics, so I'm super excited to talk to her about it. So go ahead and tell us about your project a little bit. What got you into pottery and what inspires you?
Hi, I'm Christen. And this project, I guess, I called it, Mimics, Mugs, and More. And it's because I fell in love with this design that I made. My uncle, he does pottery, but he's not like, a professional potter or any of that. He's very much a hobby potterist. And so when I told him that I was going to be selling my own pottery, he kind of would look at my stuff and be like, that's interesting. Or, you chose that, huh? Okay. And so I never felt like he was ever going to really enjoy my pottery. And that's okay because people have like different styles that they enjoy, right? But I made this particular mug, the one with the tongue that I call Mimics, and I showed that to him and he was like, oh, that's really cool. Actually, I want to buy that. And I was just like, okay. And he thought that was really neat. And just about anybody else I showed it to who is any semblance of a nerd also really thought it was neat. And I was like, okay, so this is a style that not just one person, like a bunch of people could really enjoy and think it's really cool. And so I was like, okay, this is clearly something that I can keep working on. But there's also a bunch of other styles that I really enjoy and I consider kind of a part of my staple. I have cauldron mugs, wood grain mugs, and mushroom mugs. Those are kind of my collection of things that I really enjoy making and I really enjoy the process.
So tell us a little bit about the process of creating your different types of pieces.
Of course. So different pieces obviously have different processes. I would say that, for example, the mimic mugs, I make the shape, like I throw it on a wheel. And then once the actual trimming, making is done, then the detail work happens.
Right.
So the detailing work is definitely what takes the most time. I start out by taking a coil, which is a round bit of clay, I roll it between my hands so that it becomes kind of like a string almost. Take a rolling pin basically and flatten it out. That way it becomes a little bit longer and thinner. And that's how I make the tongue. I'll cut it so that it's the proper shape I want, shape it so that it has a curve for the tongue, and I lie it on a table, set that aside, and then it's time to work on the mouth. And again, I do a bunch of coils, a coil up, coil over, and then little tiny coils that have a pointy end for the teeth. And it just takes these little itty bitty bits that you all combine together, and usually it'll take roughly 2 hours.
That is so much work for just one mug.
Different mugs will take different times though. So cauldrons usually don't take as much time because there's not as much detail work, right? But then there's wood grain mugs which actually take more time, 3 or 4 hours depending on how big the mug is.
Obviously clay is a huge resource. What other tools or resources do you use to create your pieces?
I definitely have tools in general, there's carving tools, needle tools, ribs, and sponges, wire tools. Those are a bunch of things that help. I would also say I have some handmade tools, I've never bought a sponge on a stick. I should probably someday buy an actual sponge on a stick. Just ripped apart an old sponge that I've been using and super glued it to a stick. You work with what you have. And then, I have clay. I also have glazes. Glazes are definitely a big tool and they're a lot of fun to work with.
Right. And then you have to have the kiln too, right? Do you have your own kiln or do you go somewhere else?
Yeah, I have my own studio, so to speak. My kitchen has been half taken over by my craft. I have a wheel in the corner, and then my garage has a kiln shoved in the back corner so that I can produce my work, because at one point I was working through a studio.
Okay.
But they kept losing my pieces, and after a while I was kind of fed up with that. When I first started, I definitely was not good, and so I'm sure my stuff looked like trash, and they kind of thought she's not coming back for this, it's trash, and they threw it out. But it was I spent a lot of time on that. I had plans for that. I'm not selling it, but I wanted to keep that. So
are kilns pretty expensive? I imagine they would be expensive, not only to purchase but then to keep running through the house.
Yes, they're incredibly expensive. Your average kiln runs about $2,000, and that's not even including the wiring or the electricity bill or any of that. But you see, I got lucky. My first step of luck is that I was looking on KSL and somebody was getting rid of probably that big, right? It serves my needs, but she was selling it and was selling it for $500. Sure, it had a little bit of wear and tear. Some of the coils were looking a little wonky, but like $500.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The instant I saw that, I kind of looked at my husband and I said, "Can I get it?" And he said, "Listen, I know you want to make this into your own job. I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to buy you a kiln. I'm going to buy you a wheel. I'm going to buy you all the resources that you need. But then from that point on, you have to keep yourself above the green." And I was like, sold, deal. I bought the kiln. And then I went to my dad and I said, "Is it okay if I have this in the corner of your garage and I run it in your garage?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." My dad also has a electric car. And so he has on both sides of his garage different outlets, because when you run a kiln, you don't have a 3-prong regular outlet. It's a very unique outlet, and it takes unique wiring, because you're going to overload a regular circuit. Since my dad had already put in a different outlet with different wiring for his electric car, all we had to do was get an adapter for the kiln. And so I was already set, and my dad has a solar panel on the house, and so the electric bill for him isn't even that bad because he's not paying electricity.
Wow. Okay, so if you want to get into pottery, you need to have a solar panel, an electric car, a husband who will invest in you.
Yep, pretty much. At least if you want the Valentine package.
Well, that's really cool that you got lucky and all of that, and so it's been able to work out for you. Have you been doing pottery for a long time, or is this a more recent thing that you've been working on?
I like to say it that I've been doing pottery on and off for about 7 years, but actually consistently for about 3. My local high school, I was lucky enough to have a pottery class as an elective, and I had a lot of elective credits left, and so I took 3 different pottery classes while I was in high school.
You really got the most out of that education.
Yes, I did.
Was there a favorite piece that you had, or like what's your favorite part of the process?
I would definitely say the mimics are my current favorite. The one I showed off in particular had all these little mushrooms and like moss and a little snail on top. And that was someone else's idea. They actually gave me a custom order, but I made an extra one. And oh my gosh, it was a lot of work putting all that extra detail. It just had more personality. I love the cauldron because it's so pretty and like the light really shows off that blue glaze, but like the little mushrooms growing on the side of it just give me so much joy.
So how do you plan to continue developing your skills and your business going forward?
That's an excellent question. So I definitely want to keep making new things. Like my friend and I were discussing ideas, and she was like, "Well, what if you added bones somehow? Like maybe a hand or something." I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And so then I attached like fingers basically holding up the cauldron.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a bone cauldron. I want to keep coming up with new designs of the same mug, because then not only am I challenging myself by creating something different, but I'm also expanding my audience. I actually am really, really excited. In Halloween, I have a whole bunch of different designs planned for my mimic mugs.
Oh, I'm so excited to see them.
They're going to be great.
If somebody else wanted to get into pottery or ceramics or anything, what advice would you give to them?
I would definitely say be patient with yourself and take a lot of classes, because like I said, it took me 3 years. Like, you know, most parents will like hang on to their art from their children. Like the very first thing they make, they're like, "Oh, it's so beautiful," even though it's like this mangled piece, right? You know, my stuff was so bad that my parents were like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And then I look away and they like, you know, threw it away basically.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so it took me probably like 5 or 6 years to even get centering on the wheel figured out. Pottery takes a lot of patience.
That's great advice. Let's say somebody doesn't really have all the same resources, like they don't have their own kiln or something like that, what would you suggest that they do in those situations?
I would say Google your local pottery studio, because almost every state has at least one studio, and you can pay like $10 to go throw for an hour or more, you know? So you can work with resources still at an affordable rate.
Okay, so what do you hope to accomplish in this project gallery?
Honestly, I just wanted to provide another avenue, I guess, for people to see my stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, it's an online gallery. You know, there's more opportunity for networking and for other people to see my work. And so even if literally nothing more comes out of it, 100 to 200 extra people saw what I do. And that makes me happy.
I'm so excited. Thanks for being a part of it. I appreciate it. For everybody watching, voting will start on June 24th and go until the 28th, and then winners will be announced on the 30th. So we're super excited. Make sure to vote. I'll see you later.
All right, bye.